So it's your
So
family.
current, not high school.
Huh?
Current, not high school.
It can be anything.
Oh, okay.
Anything. Take about a couple minutes. Why? Because it's deadly?
Yes.
I have to check this for
I'm
you.
35 pounds lighter.
Oh my gosh, I got more.
The one that came back to life.
So not supposed to be doing it.
No, she said it didn't matter.
I asked my wife today, how come I'm losing weight with my fingers and my neck, around my collarbone, my belt's tighter, but my belly won't shrink? I don't get it. She was like, a different kind of fat. There's two kinds of fat?
No, that is sad.
What the heck? I still have 32 pounds to go.
Are you distracting the student?
Sorry. We were talking about candy.
What? Go ahead.
Candy? I didn't want it on the table because I was going to eat it.
You know what I mean?
Can I eat something salty?
Sorry guys, I'm gonna drive you crazy with my coughing. I will apologize now.
I had a bad cough one time and I legit thought I had tuberculosis. I was like, oh god, it should not go away.
You have your 5?
No, you can't have that.
No, we're standing. Seems like windier down here than it is.
And it is up there. Although it's pretty windy on our hill.
I just saw her as an engineer.
You gotta go now.
It wasn't me. She threw that back to the wall. It was informative. I like it just because I wrote an experience.
Then you might have to work, then you become sour or upset. I try not to think
Hard.
That's what I told
Got it out of the fridge.
her. Like this.
Okay, of the 5 things that you have right there, I want you to think about what it is that, if you were to rank these 5 things, what would be the least contributing out of the 5? Like, they all contribute significantly, obviously, or you wouldn't have written them down. But what is the least, or the minimal contributor out of the 5? And what I want you to do is circle it. You just circle it, circle it, circle it. Make a point to make it circle.
What? Are you school?
So these are old. Yeah, because I mean I could have went to school anywhere with that.
Okay, now look at it. And think about which one, without it, you would not be the person you are today.
Okay.
Okay, what is the one thing that contributed to you, to making you who you are the most, or, yeah, pretty much what has contributed to making you who you are today? I want you to look at that, pick it out, and then cross it out.
Oh.
Can't do that.
Cross it out, just put a big X right through the middle of it.
Cross that one.
You're my family. You're gone. So when you cross that out, did it feel kind of weird? Could you imagine if a kid was doing this, and you go through this, and then you say, cross it out. And you can elaborate even more. Your culture, right? I mean, all of these things contribute to who you are. I did this at a diversity conference eons ago. And the guy that was doing it, it was so powerful because most of the, what do you call them, pull-out sessions were not that great. And we walk into this one, and this guy does this to us, and you can see all of us going, and looking around like, what in the heck just happened? Basically, what makes you who you are builds your foundation, right? You know, that's your foundation. That's who you are. That's where you get your confidence. That's where you get your identity. And for all of us, it can be different things. But when we chip away at a kid's foundation, and one of the examples he gave was, I had a black friend once. He was cool. Sorry, you're saying all the rest aren't? Or he said, he used the gay thing once, and he said, you know, I had a student once that was gay, and he was pretty cool. So you're meeting it in the best way, but you're chipping at their foundation of who they are. And I never really thought about it. I had a student that was one of my avid kids. So I had her for 4 years. She was like one of my babies. And every weekend she was so excited because she was going to go to San Joaquin for the weekend. And I would make jokes. Oh, you going to San Joaquin? And I'd kind of giggle, thinking, you know, I was being cute. And she'd always say, yeah, Miss Taylor, I'm going to go see my family. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. How many people live in San Joaquin? 5? You know, and is it all your family? And I made jokes. And after I sat through this, I was like, whoa. You know, she knew I was joking, but I was still chipping away. Chipping away. In other words, if you're from San Joaquin, you're not good enough. You know? And I had been teaching years, and I realized that I was just chipping away at her foundation. And after I walked back in after this, I went over and pulled her aside, and I said, I'm so sorry. And I know that I can't repair that damage, you know? But the reality is, I was so guilty of doing that. So guilty. And what I wanted you to realize, and first of all, this is a really cool activity to do with some of your kids, but it's also important for us as teachers to realize that without meaning to, we might be chipping away at some of our kids. And today is all about rapport. It's going to be all about rapport. So there's going to be stuff like this. I think we're good on that. Okay? You guys have any questions? I know somebody has done it before and she did it with their leadership class. Has anybody else ever done this? I mean, I didn't build it up as much as we could or anything like that, but you get the point because I think it would be something powerful to do with your kids. Maybe on a different level, maybe altered a little bit, but and here we go, Steve.
All right, reviewing real quick our 4 modules, instructional environment. This is part 2 of classroom expectations. Lesson planning is coming next. We have 3 sessions on that, and then accountability and motivation. Let's review. We talked about the different zones in your classroom. So in your table groups, what are the 3 zones, real quick? And what is the remedy for those zones? Approximation. Good. All right, then we talked about staying calm, and why was that important?
Don't let them see you sweat.
Don't let them see you sweat. All right. If they can get you flustered, several things can happen, but one of them is that the classroom is controlling you instead of you controlling the classroom. Your fight-flight reflex is initiated. We talked about, I was listening like, oh man, I got a coffee. I wasn't thinking I was going to be that teacher that needed coffee, but I have to have coffee. And by the way, I was telling him, you know that planet Earth is the only planet worth saving because it's the only one that has coffee? Okay, come on now. I'll pay you later. I know I have a really dry sense of humor. I understand. The idea that you're being agitated all the time causes what to be released in your body? Oh, I know.
Cortisol.
Not cortisone.
Cortisol.
Adrenaline. Right? Adrenaline is released. You go on a high for about 20, 30 minutes. If you're constantly being interrupted all day long, you're in that state of stress. You call it being stressed out all day long. And we talked about those muscles up here being tight, and you're hoping that somebody would rub them for you on your way home, or they hurt, or about 30 minutes after class ends, you're crashing, right? you're tired. Because the fight-flight reflex is being kicked in all the time. So we looked at some relaxation techniques, and we practiced that. And we looked at Queen Victoria and decided that we wanted to make sure that our students couldn't read our emotions. How many of you have been trying that? How's it working?
It works. It works. I mean, it does. I think trying to get that one kid that knows that there's one kid who kind of knows what I'm doing already. He's just watching, and then he ends up getting louder. Like, shh, be quiet, guys. Shh, shh. All right, Santiago, go ahead. You can go now. So trying to get him to not do that, that's the next step. But
so you need to pull him aside.
I need it, yeah.
Have a conversation with him. Say, hey, it's obvious and make it positive. It's obvious you're a leader. Here's what we can do. You can choose to use your skills for bad or for good. You could be this class leader and help make this amazing, or you could destroy it. You have that kind of power. If you choose to use your leadership skills for bad, you won't like my reaction. And you and I are going to have more problems going forward. But if you use it for good, we're going to have a great experience together. So you can change that for him with that kind of dialogue. And then give him chores to do. Hey, you're my line leader. Hey, I need you to take this to the office. Or hey, would you make sure that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make him, you're acknowledging that he has leadership skills. Now make him a leader in a positive way. See if it flips the script. All right. Who else? What's
I was
that?
gonna say, a couple of my kids, when I'm doing that, and I've just got the, they're talking, and I've got the face on, the Queen Victoria face, they're looking like, okay, what's her reaction gonna be, And I just keep looking until they stop.
And they get used to it, and pretty soon they know what that's a signal. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh.
In the past, before I started using that, two things. I saw one kid just smile every time I got angry. And soon I would be one, dang it! I got angry, dang it. And I didn't even think I was showing it. I thought I was not showing it. And then another kid said, Miss Alfredo, do you like us? Because I was not acting like I liked them. Now that I'm more calm, the whole class is quieter. I got 32 eighth graders all day. And one kid is, am I doing good? The one that was giving me a lot of trouble. Am I doing good? Am I doing good? Yes, you're doing very well. It's so much easier too.
So the idea that the class feeds off of your emotion is truth, right? Good. All right, teach twos. We went over it. I think we kind of introduced it. That'd be the best way to say it. We're covering it in depth tonight a little more, or we're going to come back to it next time?
We can, yeah.
So one of the things that Jenny noticed as she was going out and observing classes is we need to go and revisit this. And then look at Teach Twos and how they play into our procedures and how they make the class run much better. The bottom line is, again, I'll say it again, that we can't hold a student accountable for behavior that we haven't explicitly taught. And to assume that our 8th grader knows that when I'm talking, you're sitting down and being quiet, may or may not be something that they really do know. We can never assume that they know how to behave. Just in the same way, how many of you teach math? If you make the mistake that your kids know the math facts, are you in trouble? Oh, this is 4th grade stuff. You know this. No, we don't. Well, let's get out and we're going to do this FOIL project right here as we multiply binomials. What? They're gone, right? We can never assume.
I'm gone.
All right. In thinking about your Teach 2 lessons, what was the review?
Next. There it is.
3 questions I want you to answer in your table groups. And are we playing the video now or later?
That's your video. Wah, wah, wah.
Oh, that's right. All right, so I'm going to let you answer the first question. What was good about your lesson? When you hear the music, you need to stop. Ready? Go. What was good about your Teach 2s?
So that's like something that they'll always like
The only teacher I have is using that right? Of course. person. I only have to use it in one period.
But on the front end, we have
This is what it
taught
talks
the
about.
students how to have a quiet face.
No, they just know how to react to that part.
Still working on it.
Other numbers?
I wasn't here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we were supposed to create 5 lessons off
Maybe you were
of,
here that day.
so we're gonna have a 25 procedures or things that we. And you had about a class on a number of procedures and routines. And then we had to pick 5 of those items and create a lesson plan for each one. So like, entering the classroom, you need to make a lesson plan and teach your students how to enter, how you want them to enter the classroom.
And I go, but you know, all of this is static. You're gonna have to. It also depends on your kids.
I did that at the beginning of the year.
And
Yeah.
What school are you at?
So,
Yeah. Man, I can't imagine PE without numbers.
70 kids too to take roll. So maybe you have enough of it.
If you have to call the office every single time you have to call someone there.
you're gonna get the right out.
Because you can't call extension or an extension.
I have to call.
They have a call.
All right. Sorry.
For walkie-talkie.
What was bad? What can you improve, and how would you improve it? Ready? Go.
What was that?
Oh, you what? No. How would you improve your scramble?
You know what? That doesn't change. Because I would use simple words in high school and they'd look at me blank and I go, okay, and then I come up with another word, they still have a blank look. So then I was like the third word, and I mean,
It's not here.
they,
I was talking to my 8th grader at home the other day.
This is where you're gonna
That green stuff.
I just thought that was a plan.
all the
We had a parent who's not real educated, and his daughter was really good college. And somebody said,
Like what they need. Because you know they've all been on Google Classroom already from middle school because they use that so much.
and then you can see everybody going,
Really showing
Can't imagine 70 students trying to count all of them.
nothing, something like that.
special moment.
When
I realized what
And then like take it a step back.
every time go to class, it's like organized and how I know.
Yeah.
And like everything.
Well, I don't think he knew how to use, he had one of those.
Well, I wasn't here last week, but I guess one of my teach too.
This is an old story.
Getting out and putting back credits.
I say,
Yeah, so something like I picked something really easy. I have a rock.
Sorry, I just touched you.
or I'd say North Forty, right?
I
Just
just
tell the kid all the time, I'm like, hey, is it North Forty? He's so excited about this,
Song to the good and the bad.
You would think they get the right one, but they still get the wrong one sometimes. So
I know that word, I've never heard the song.
putting them
What
back.
was ugly? What will you not do next time? Go.
What would you not do next?
The first time I did it, I didn't dismiss it too much. I said everyone go get Chromebook. And so I had 36 kids riding towards the Chromebook. So that was ugly for sure. Then I thought I'll just call it my
Putting them in the right way and make sure they're in the right slot.
But then they won't or they're like crossing this.
Yeah.
Find the actual wires.
And get it right.
It just takes one person to do it wrong to mess up everything. Have you ever tried like signing somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, every which way.
Teachers about
What do I want?
Told you.
And then I subbed the 7th
You know, so there's
I think to me it's 20 minutes. I don't know what I'm seeing.
No.
and I'm going through, I'm like, oh, what could be
But I would say that
you know, like, so like,
4, 7,
I think that's part of that. Next year.
Now I need salt.
You know it's 20 minutes and I told her mom.
All right. Now for this activity, you need a partner. I promised myself I wouldn't lick my fingers, and I took this sticky stuff from the store. Trying to break a bad habit down. Yeah, I got the idea there, but it's from Home Depot. Okay, you need a partner, and you can't be 3 and 4. You need one partner. So I see like a 2. There's 6 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3. Then I know that it's going to add up to 8. You need a partner.
Might have to meet somebody new.
I do it sometimes.
Go to high school.
It says, what do I need to do? Don't put my name on
They're a group, we're a group, and they're a group.
Okay, leave them face down. Don't do anything yet. All right. The youngest person will be the teacher. The oldest person will be the student. Oldest is the student, and the youngest is the teacher.
You were afraid to ask.
Okay. Here are the rules. The student cannot do anything until the teacher has done it. So I'm going to tell the teacher what to do, one step at a time. Don't jump ahead of me. You take the step. Then you're going to teach it to your partner, and you're going to check for mastery. You ready? Okay. I want you to turn your papers over and orient the template so that the up arrow is at the top of the page.
You said you were the teacher.
The students or just the teacher?
Students, teachers first, and then the students.
Okay.
Now students. Teachers tell the students what to do.
And position the paper so that the up arrow
Oriented towards the top.
Now I want you to turn it over.
No, don't do it. Yeah,
But don't flip it over. That arrow still has to be up. So there you go. So turn it over. And then students, turn it over.
I forgot to tell you to turn it over.
Teachers.
flip it over.
Now, are you ready? Teachers. Fold the top left corner down toward you until fold line 1 becomes visible. Crease along the dotted line.
Fold the top left corner
That's my part I learned.
until the number 1 is visible.
Few seconds on
And
that.
crease along the dashed line.
Left, right corner, and then pull it back until you see the dash line, until you see the 1, pull on the dash line.
Alright. So we're checking for mastery. Alright, now teacher students.
Teacher student.
Oh, we already taught.
We're advanced class.
Do the same to the right side and still fold number 2 is exposed.
You're gonna grab the top right corner.
Left side, that's where you're
And then that's it, ink went down on the right side.
corner back.
This one, so that there's left down here, and you want to see the top right corner.
Hold the right side and it still says number 1. Sorry. It should still say number 1.
It should still say number one.
Says number one. Checking for mastery.
There you go.
Are you with me?
Still having that line on the.
Number 3, teachers. Fold the nose down until fold line number 2 becomes visible and crease along the dotted line.
You gotta take the top part of the triangle.
Sorry. No, not like this. So you're gonna fold it until the dash line. Yes, and you have
So review.
we need the.
He's just kidding.
And they're on their phone, so I'm like,
Step 3.
they're gonna be asking me.
Fold the outside wing edges in and crease along fold line number 3.
Take left side
You're gonna take the.
and right side.
Oh.
Fold
You
it
take the
down.
left side and the right side, and you're gonna fold it until you see the number 3.
See the number 3.
Gosh, this is horrible.
Fold that corner again.
I have the almost. Okay. No. You made it clean for him. So I think the
Do it to both sides.
No, the plane goes. You're not messing up. You're teaching
Yeah,
me.
you gotta make sure it's on the line though.
That's what ends up happening. The students
Just like I noticed, looking on a Google slide, I had a kid going, okay, why don't you do it like this? Thank you.
I was testing you.
Yeah.
You do another
I already
way.
know this stuff. I'm just trying to make sure you know.
That's like my favorite. I'm like, this is great.
And then when they used to do the paper bags for
they're like,
book covers.
they like showing this.
Fold the right half of the plane over the left half and crease along fold line number 4 so that the outside edges of the wings line up.
So you're gonna
Take the
fold
right.
the right side of the plane,
So,
fold it over to the left side so they line up.
This corner until you see this corner match.
I am very much a visual learner. I'm like the art for
Hold your
Tacos or hamburgers?
hamburger, hot dog.
Oh my gosh. It doesn't matter at this point.
So you just look before. Make a hot dog. Make a smaller hot dog.
Fold the winglets up along folded line number 6.
Somebody use that.
Wait, what happened to 5?
Did I skip 5?
Yeah.
Fold the wings along fold number 5. Sorry.
You're right.
do the same thing for the other side.
Kick it.
Yeah, 5. Fold the wings down along fold number 5.
Bring back the corner, spin around, bring
Like a
back
Star
the
Wars.
corner, fold it over and bring it
Add the winglets along fold number 6.
And then add the winglets.
Your winglets are upside down.
Mine is playing McDonald's. Yours are.
What happened? The only guy in the room and you, I mean, 3 of them. Come on now. You got it. You got it.
You pulled it up.
I never made enough
I
of
obviously don't make it.
these in elementary.
Well, you know, my kids have the.
All right. If you want to,
So they
if you want to,
So they make it like.
add dihedral by tilting the wings up slightly away from the fuselage. The wings will have a slight V shape and view from the front. You can add elevator slits along the back edge of the wings to adjust the flight if necessary. You are ready for launch.
Hold it down here. So it's like this.
You are ready for launch. If you want to throw them, go ahead.
Just watch your eyes. I don't think it's too weird. That was dead on. Oh. That was good. No, I told her to do it.
No.
So this is a good one, it's not pointed, so it won't.
Oh, true. They fly pretty good too. Well, they fly well. That's what I meant. I did not teach English. I did not. He shaved your head.
Or no?
That's what I missed last week.
You could do that too. Like for a rainy day activity.
I've been doing it. And that is how Tom got it.
All right, so moving on, all my little engineers. What?
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So, question. Did everybody, well, almost everybody, master folding the airplane?
No.
You did. You just.
How did we do it? Step by step. When we get into lesson planning, we're going to talk about that a whole lot more.
You were walking it around to make sure that.
And I was
everybody
checking for
on
understanding as we were going around.
And you didn't give the next step.
Did we go on before we had mastery?
Yes.
No, I'm trying to go there.
Wrong answer.
Packers coach, famous Packers coach. Gosh darn it. Vince Lombardi,
Vince Lombardi.
said, practice doesn't make perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect practice makes perfect. All right. Could you go home tonight and take the airplane, or maybe we practice it again and make it without the instructions?
No.
With the lines on that back of the paper?
Put the line on.
How many of you, this is a totally gender inequality question I probably shouldn't ask. But I'm asking anyway, and Kent, don't watch this. We just went through sexual harassment training last week.
Kent?
How many of you never have folded a paper airplane before?
No.
Never. How many females have never folded? It's usually a lot of hands go up. So y'all practiced at airplane throwing out. Well, that's a good thing. Not this. All right. So this one had some complicated steps, or at least the product looks a lot different than the ones you grew up on, right? Way to go. This is how you do the teach twos. A step at a time. A little bit here, a little bit there. We keep going, but we always make sure that we have mastery before we move on to the next step. Okay? We're going to, are we practicing where they goof up the teach two and
We'll do that next because we were going to revisit it.
So we're going to revisit teach twos next time, and you're actually.
I think that's not a bad idea right before lesson plans.
We'll make you do it in class. You're going to come in and show us how to do teach twos. So we're looking at this as really, really important that you grasp it and own it and master it. So we're going to keep practicing this. I told you we're going to do goofy things here. This is enough. All right, now we'll let you. Oh, you want me to do this?
You go ahead and do it, and then we'll come on.
All right. So
Just a review.
just this review, talking about proximity, and I left my phone somewhere. I think it's going off. We talked about what happens if you start talking to the kid that's in trouble. You're starting back talk, right? I told you to be quiet. I am being quiet. I don't want to have to tell you again. Fine, don't tell me again. whoa, wait a minute, I've had enough of that, we'll see you later. And it's not the kids' back talk that'll get them kicked out, it's your back talk that'll get them kicked out. If they're going to participate in this melodrama, they can do all the work, right? All right, you can use a nonverbal prompt, and you can redirect. And we have more tools coming
Yep.
In a couple of weeks. We're not going to give them to you now because there's a tendency to grab them, use them, and then forget everything else we told you because they work that well. We want you to build the system in place, and then we'll talk about preferred activity time and reflection time. All right,
Diffusers.
I put these in for you. You didn't see these, but I want you to come talk about it.
No, I had them in.
No, you didn't.
Okay, so diffusers. These are my favorite. Mainly because there's a little sarcasm in them. But, so you got this kid. I use this example all the time, Romeo and Juliet. Because, you know, kids tend to not enjoy Romeo and Juliet. And I'll say, okay, we're going to get our book out. You know, we're going to be on this page. I need everybody to join me. I need some volunteers. Miss Taylor, what are we doing? Oh, we're going to read Miss Romeo and Juliet. Oh, that's gay. I hate this play. So what do you do when that happens? Do you ignore it and move on? Potentially.
Thank you for sharing that.
There you go. Right then, if you say, thank you for sharing, I usually say, that may be, but we're still going to read. You can either join us or sit there and be bored. But all of these are called diffusers. So when a kid decides they want to smart back, or instead of engaging in the debate, you can say something like this. Like, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. I understand. Like if somebody goes, Miss Taylor, I'm so tired. I understand. I can relate. But you know what? We got stuff we got to do. You pretty much put a kid back on their heels, just like a boxer does. When you have something to say that is quick, quippy, you're not embarrassing them, you're not calling them out, you're able to not engage in the debate, but squash it without losing the kid's integrity. So that may be, probably so, I'm sorry, nevertheless. The story that I heard that I thought was hysterical was this one teacher was using these, and she had this superintendent's kid in class. And the kid said, Miss whoever, Mr. whoever, I can't do this, I'm too stupid. And the teacher, not even thinking about it, said, probably so. And it was a superintendent's kid, so be careful who you use them on. And obviously, you've got to know your kids. If you said that to the meek little mouse over there and said, probably so, but blah, 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 that kid might be crushed forever. But that's not going to be the kid that calls you out in the middle of class either, right? So diffusers are one of my favorite because I'm that sarcastic person. The other thing that we've talked about, and you guys, what the hey? Okay, we'll talk about it. Is the prompting. You know when we were talking about the, hello Larry, or thank you Larry, and then you went over and you pointed, nonverbal cues. You can also do verbal cues such as, I need you to be on number 2. You don't suggest it. You don't say, hey, could you please get on number 2? No. You walk over and you say, I need you to get on number 2. Nothing is a suggestion. You tell them what you want them to do. Okay? So if I walk over and I see that they're chatting, I can walk over and I'm going to say, I need you to be on task right now. What about the kid that says, I can't do this. I suck at math. Probably so. No. You walk over and you can say, you know what? How about you work on number 1, and I'll come back and check with you in a little bit, and I'll see. I think you could do number 1. You're being positive. You're refocusing. You're not embarrassing the kid, and you're like, I'll come back and check on you. Well, the kid is getting some personal attention, but it doesn't take a lot of your time. You work on number 1. Don't stand over him and help him do it, or her. Sorry, don't mean to be like that. But if I walk over to a kid and I know this kid never gets anything done, he's the kid that sits and will distract everybody else, you know in your head you kind of need to circle quite a bit over here. So you go, hey, do number 1 for me, and I want to see how, how awesome you are at this. Or if you're just ticked at that point, you can just say, I really need you to finish number 1. That would make me happy. And then they do number 1. Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. So in the lower grades, when we work into like stations and I'm back with the guided reading group, how would I be able to do that with that one child who doesn't get anything done like that?
I would be preemptive in that because you know you can't get up every time, right? So you guys are in a group. I'm getting ready to come sit over there, potentially tied up because I don't get out of chairs very quickly. And I would say to him before, hey, do me a favor. I need you to do 3 of these, and then I want you to come show it to me real quick. Maybe do 2, maybe do 1, whatever you can handle. How about you do the first 5, and I'll let you be the first one out to PE. A lot of people will call that bribery, but as far as I'm concerned, it works. So, even with high schoolers, it was, hey, if you could get your, because I did Avid, so I would say, hey, if you can get your tutorial done and written up, I might let you guys go to lunch 30 seconds early. Really? 30 seconds? You know what I mean? But those kids were like, oh yeah, hormones. Hormones, I can go see my boyfriend and girlfriend. But you can use that to your advantage. And that's kind of what this is all about, is changing your thinking so that you don't have to work as hard. I'm not trying to be lazy, although I am. But if you can coordinate. When I first got really sick, I was 5 years in. So I had tenure. But at 5 years, you're not necessarily beyond that rookie phase just yet. And I got really sick. And I was on chemo meds and all this stuff, and I just I didn't have the energy to perform. And so I realized the only way I was going to get through the year was group things and things that I could manage by popping to different desks. But that meant, and my classes averaged 40 kids, that meant that I, at any given point, was green lighting a lot of kids. And thankfully, I think I developed a lot of the group stuff then out of pure survival. But I realized that if I could get, Johnny over here who is a pain in the butt, and Paige over here who can't shut up, if I could give them certain goals, short-term goals, or hey, like this kid, let's say she's a talker, but obviously she's a leader. I need you to lead this group for me. So you're going to run tutorial today? Okay? And so if I have an issue, I'm going to come to you and I want you to help me out. Well, boom, you just made that kid's day. And then if the kids realize that you're going to be fair, and maybe next time she's in charge, they're not going to say, well, what about me? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm going to, everybody will get a chance. So how about you be really good and do, be cool to your teammate, your classmate, whatever, and don't make her life miserable. Really you should say be good, but, really the fact is just don't make her life miserable. Participate, answer, and behave. These are some of the different, did I answer your question? Okay. The prompts, you can gesture, you can model. I don't know that they always notice when you're actually modeling a behavior, because I think for them it's very reactive. And if you're like, if you're sitting quietly, they just think, good, you're out of my way. Like, they're not worried, they're not going, oh, my teacher's sitting so cute and so nice, and I'm going to sit like that. They're not really going to do that. But modeling in terms of the appropriate voice, the appropriate way to write on the board, those type of things, you're modeling. You can ask a question. I get in trouble here because of sarcasm, though. So if they're back there talking and I could say, are we a couple yet? Are we a couple? And, then they get embarrassed. Oh my God, Miss Hill, that's stupid. No way, I would never. But they shut up. Because now they're both red-faced and horribly embarrassed. Is that appropriate? Probably not. You would only do that in the class that you really, like my Avid kids I had for 4 years and felt like a parent. And so I felt like I could probably say a little bit more than them than I would my freshman class. That brings up a story. I do not like snakes at all, which living in the country is. And I can't do snakes. Well, of course, our science teacher has all these boas and all these beautiful snakes. That's what they tell me. And the kids love to carry them around campus. And it's a given rule. You don't go anywhere in Miss Taylor's room because she will freak out. I really have a true phobia. And So the kids all know this. And actually, if I walk into the office and one of the kids is in the office with it, you'll see them turn around and walk out. So 2 of my seniors thought it would be really funny. Back when we had VCRs, I was getting a movie ready. And they go, Miss T. And I turn around, boom, snake right here. Well, I had a freshman class and earmuffs, but I said, Holy, get out of my face. And I went, I said, I am so sorry. Oh my God, you guys, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Of course, the kid beelined it out. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I just kept waiting for the phone calls from the parents. Not one parent called. Nothing. But I was mortified. I've never done that, ever, but yeah. So, anyway, appropriate, not always. Make statements and behavior momentum. If that table's being awesome and there's one kid that's trying to upset them, you can go, man, that table, you guys are doing awesome. Thank you. That kid looks stupid now without you doing anything to make them look stupid. Right? And then all his friends look at him. You know, you're not being cool. So, this is my thing, the rapport thing. So, we're on rapport now. There's 3 parts to class expectations. We talked about self-control, which is the Queen Elizabeth / Victoria, Faith, whatever. You know, hello Larry. Teach twos, which should have an apostrophe. That bugs me. I'm an English teacher. And develop rapport. This is supposed to be like really cute, coming on at the same time. If people look at us as a loser, we'll become to believe that we are a loser. If a kid has one adult who believes in him, that person can have a transforming quality. If you surround a group of kids with people who believe in them, just imagine what can happen. I saw this firsthand, and I wish I'd done almost like a paper on it, even though I wasn't in the mood to write a paper. But I started teaching AVID, and if any of you have ever done AVID, it's exhausting. And you go through this massive training that is exhausting, and you think, there is no way I'm going to be able to get all this in. And then everybody keeps saying, oh, these kids will become like a family. And they'll be, you know, you're like the mom. And I'm like, great. So we picked 60 10th graders and said, hey, you want to go to college? Awesome. We got this new program. You want to join? And that's how we picked them. And that's not how you're supposed to pick AVID kids, but that's how we did in the first group. We said, you like field trips? Oh, yeah. So that was why they all signed up. And so I'm sitting there with this class of kids. I'm already tired because I spent all summer in training. And I'm looking, and I've got the Aggie over here, and I've got the gangbangers over here, you know, and I've got the jocks, I've got the band kids, and I'm sitting there looking and going, no way are they all going to like each other. There's no way. There's just no way. Like, not to mention that my Aggie kid was a little out there, and she wasn't a typical Aggie kid, she was a nerdy Aggie kid, so she didn't fit anywhere, really. And I'm like, oh, God. There's no way. But I stood up in front of them and I said, you guys were handpicked to be in this class. And I didn't believe it either. And I'm like, you were handpicked to be in this class. You guys are so smart. Do you guys realize you're the best of the best? And in my head, I'm thinking, sell it, Jenny, sell it. And I thought, these kids need to believe in themselves. These are all kids that are AVID targets, kids that are in the middle, who could go to college but don't have parents who either have degrees or a variety of things. And my geeky Aggie kid had a 90-year-old father. And he had children. I went to his funeral. He had children all over Italy. But, for real, he had children all over Italy. Like, he had 5 different wives that got up and spoke. Like, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So this kid did not come from a normal situation. Okay? And we're sitting there, I'm like, there's no way these kids are going to be, no way. So their junior or senior year, we went to UC Merced, which was a brand new school. Wasn't even really officially recruiting kids yet. And we're at Lake Yosemite, and we're having a barbecue. And I had a couple teachers that chaperoned. We always tried to get new teachers to go so they could see how cool it was. And my kids are walking arm in arm. They're walking hand in hand. And this one teacher goes, are they dating? I'm like, no. They're just friends. And then you see like the geeky Aggie kid. She's walking arm in arm with another kid. And I kind of stepped back and I went, holy crap. It happened. Well, then the geeky Ag kid's dad died. And I thought, oh God, nobody's gonna go to the funeral. The whole class went on their own. And they were all, it gives me chills still. And they were all standing arm in arm at the funeral. Weirdest funeral I've ever been to in my life. They had a pickup truck with a whole diabetic, like 3-sided board lesson shrine to this man. Like weird. And then, like I said, he had 5 different wives get up and talk. And I'm like, this is kidding, right? I mean, I'm looking at the other avid teacher going, they're kidding, right? And she's like, shh, we have to behave. The kids are taking this very serious. And I'm like, is this for real? Like, I mean, it was one of those funerals you actually laughed at. But the kids were so serious and they were so proud to be there for her. So it is true. You can tell a kid who's had a crap life, who has crap parents, if you tell them, I know you can do this, even if you don't believe it yourself, they believe that you believed in them. And that can be life-changing. That's crazy to think something so simple. But they'll tell you, they will tell you. I had high school kids say, oh, I had a teacher tell me one time that I would never amount to anything. They don't forget. But they're not going to forget the positive stuff either. Bathroom break. Be back at 35. This farm, did you listen to it? Oh my gosh. How cool is this? One of my former students called me and said, yes.
People were like, I've got to go back for
And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, you got to turn on. So I watched it and I'm like, holy crap, I would not know
because they needed to
Huh? Did you read it?
call us in the
I think
court
so.
to tell them that it's going to be sent. Go back on Tuesday, that way we can
This? Sorry.
I'm watching it because I did.
deliberation. We started deliberation Thursday.
I would love to speak in a big
Oh, in lieu of teaching.
Well,
Microsoft put it to
I used to teach K, which is,
It doesn't even.
Right, I know what it is.
I used to.
On conference day. So you're doing
I even had trouble with the hearing.
I'll teach those, and so everything to make sure the babies are all well.
Okay, a little too much sugar.
That's why you're
My dad has one of those things where
yeah, I don't know.
Oh, he has the placebo or whatever that. Mine is constant.
oh, I see.
And so it just, I don't even have to, it just does it every 5 minutes. And I'm a little high.
I mean, they provide.
But yeah, it's, you know who showed me this was Betty.
I'll be done.
And then I asked my doctor about it because I finally started taking it serious. Sort of. And she was like, oh, that would be perfect for you. So, and then,
Why there are
I don't know.
convenient
I don't know. How about, I went to a city doctor today and he ticked me off. He's so deaf. And like, so I have a mass in my kidney that they can, cancer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and you know, I read the ultrasound report and it says, possibly cancer, you need to get a biopsy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, so I call them and I'm like, can you get me in sooner? I don't wanna wait. And they're like, oh, no, he doesn't have an earlier date. So I go in there thinking, he's at least read my file. And we're both sitting there and he says, well, your kidney function's pretty good. He said, you're at 70 now, you were at 83 when I first saw you 20 years ago. I'm like, well, that's really good, like 13%. And then he says, yeah, I think I might put you on CellCept. Well, I know CellCept's a chemo drug, I don't want to be on it. Right? And I said, well, I better get about this. And I said, what about the mass? What? He said, what about the mass? There's a mass on my kidney. It's been there for a little while. And well, what do you mean? There is a cyst, a mass on my kidney. Oh. You see it in the ultrasound? Really? Really? So he goes in and he's, oh yeah. Oh yeah, we need to get that done right now. He said, we're gonna send you for he says the ultrasound doesn't always give the true side or anything like that. He said, we need to have a CT with contrast to make sure, see how big it is. Because if it's over 2 centimeters or millimeters, it's generally cancer. Yeah. And I'm like, he goes, and if it's as complex as they're saying, I'm like, oh, okay. And you weren't really gonna look at it? So one day he tell me, he says, I need to know, like, are you really hooked on this doctor? I said, no. And she's going through it. She's like, I don't really know this doctor. She said, you couldn't hear it pretty well, you said. And she said, and then he's just clicking. He doesn't know what's wrong on the computer or anything. Couldn't find all the test results he needs. That is really far here, and he couldn't find the results. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And this is the second time I've seen him. I had to urine before the first time. And so I'm like, oh my God, that's Tammy, we just talked again. And she's like, you don't seem to be done how I'm meeting him. I go, you really hope for meeting him. And he was terrible. It takes 3 months to get ACCS. Because his cancer, I don't want to sit on his class. And she's like, I guess I get that. You know what? I'm special. I think I'm remember it here in the house. It's just
Your party. Okay, guys, we're having a Halloween party. Have some carrots and apples.
And it never ends. No, I can't sleep because my roommates. I had a nurse that gave me an IV, even after I sent her. I'm allergic to it. She was like, we'll just give you some. That's it. I eat the macaroni. I had nerve Oh, I had another. So that's what surgery. All you have to do is pick it.
One more. Four?
This is the fourth one.
So
I missed the third one.
he's got loads of steam on his tray, and he leaves the room. So I text his
Yeah.
secretary, you better bring the alcohol or something. This
And then we have 3 next in 2019.
comes back in.
And we're done. 3 days after in 2019. Next year. We should be done by February.
Walks in and goes, so I'm like, who's the patient? I'm sitting with my leg.
What, 3 days?
What's wrong with you?
And then Nick is
My foot's in this thing. I know something on my head's hurt.
22.
I'm like, is this common? And I go, what? She goes, can you just walk out to the night? So I get on the green and we go here and there.
The journal writing fun.
But they don't tell me this.
The journal writing fun. The IoT, the journal writing. No. We're doing ours is RTI and there's no RTI in society. RTI. Ms. Girl, she's like, she's gonna run. So like, we're doing research for her and she's in the program. We haven't. There's just so many emails. That's something we have to fill out here too? Before when? Who sent this out? Well, I said we do it. Send us a little email. Yeah, that's the dude. Yeah.
Even though I guess.
We can't even just talk about it. Yeah, that's right. RTI you really can't implement it. Because it's gonna be it's gonna be
Put it together, jigsaw.
Oh, you're in the same group as James, right?
So they jigsawed our jigsaw class. And then
self-reported grading. I heard that one's gonna be. You guys are gonna do a lot.
Some of them started before, but then they had to go, they had a big activity with the rubric, so that they had to really understand what the rubric said.
you right away.
I thought that you were themselves,
year.
I thought they
So
were
you gotta do it in the class, in your PE class.
I did it, and I had to have them circle where they thought you were, in that skill, I had some of the skills that they involved on, and then I assessed them.
That's cool, so you have something to talk about. Yeah.
Falsify the data. Alternative facts.
So we don't,
People wouldn't have shot, they would have had security armed guards at the synagogue.
I had to be like, I had to be. Who said that?
Whoever said that.
No, he did not.
what a knucklehead. See, that was now. What a knucklehead. Yeah. So now, at church.
There's no guarantee you could have just killed the security guards and went inside anyway.
Or they had security guards at, what was that one high school, Stoneman Douglas, and he was just hiding in the corner.
That's crazy.
But usually those security guards don't even care. They have what, like a taser or something? Whistle? Or if he wasn't on a lunch break.
So then now they're getting blown up. So I'm glad we were thinking the corner. Oh. So I'm teaching them along. And when I'm meeting one with the hacker in the morning, like first 30 minutes, I use that time to do well work. And I stuff like fight back. So they don't know progress. I have paper trail, you never me that you're working on it. So then I can print that out.
Alright, we're gonna get moving because I really want you to see this video, and some of you have seen it. It'll be repeat, but I don't think some of these videos you can't see too many times. So this is just class management, identifying and teaching classroom expectations. I think you guys have all seen how that affects your kids in a positive way, and then they're not unsure of what you're expecting. I was the queen of not doing this right. I mean, I assumed that they all knew what I wanted, and I assumed that they all had similar backgrounds to mine. And yet, I knew they didn't, because, you know, my parents were married, they're still married, I don't know how, but they're still married. And then, you know, I came from a middle class, whatever, my house was when everybody came and hung out at, so everybody always thought we had the perfect childhood. We didn't, but we don't need to get into that. And one of the things that I realized is, my mom used to say to me, I don't know how you're ever going to relate to these kids. You didn't go through anything. And I thought, oh God. So then I was petrified. I can't be an inner city teacher because I don't know what I'm doing. I grew up in the South, you know. And I thought, screw you. Yes, I can. Because understanding what my kids are going through, I don't have to bend through it. I just need to listen and open up. And there were some things that freaked me out. I had a kid one time ask to speak to me, comes up to me, never had spoken to me before, other than our normal, hey, what's going on, how's it going? And he says, Miss Taylor, can I talk to you? He waits, everybody leaves. And he was a Hmong kid, and he says, Miss Taylor, his dad was the shaman of their tribe. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, I know you're probably Christian. I'm like, that's okay, I can still talk to you. I mean, I appreciate you coming to me. We start talking. Well, his parents were heroin addicts from over in the country. And he's like, Miss Taylor, I'm watching my family waste away. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, okay, I don't know either. You know, immediately refer him to a counselor and try to help in that regard. But I'm like, holy crap, I didn't go to school to learn how to do that. You know, I remember being told that certain cultures, you know, you don't ready things, you don't touch them on the head. We had a Japanese exchange student, I learned that early. And not like I went around and patted his head, but it was something they taught us. And I thought, you know, these kids, we all come from different places. And we all, even if we both come from, let's say, middle class, low class, whatever, lower class, we still don't have exact a match. I mean, I don't know of any family that truly had, you know, the Beaver Cleaver life. And if you did, God bless you. But we've talked about, my grandmother expected me to vacuum a certain way. My mother was just thankful if I vacuumed. And so there was such two different standards. So realize that even if your kid, when you call that parent, the parent says, well, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know. I can't control him either. That's not a sign for you to throw on the white flag. Because when you hear a parent say that, that needs to be your challenge to go, I can win this kid over. I can. And the way you do it is by caring. So, identify and teach classroom expectations. If you identify that, it doesn't matter where your kids come from. They know what you're expecting when they come through that door. They know what your rules are, and that may be the only classroom where they are safe and they know what to expect. But that's your classroom. And you get to be that person for them. That's pretty awesome. Because you can make such a difference. And then the other thing is unconditional positive regard, which is rapport. Unconditional means a kid walks through the door and you go, I'm happy to see you. Not, do you have your homework? Awesome, thank you. That's conditional. You're asking for something and you're judging, or not judging it, but you're making a response to that. When you say, God, it's good to see you today, I'm not basing that on anything. I'm just glad to see you. That's huge. So keep that in the back of your head as you're dealing with your kids. Are you giving enough, they call it UPR. Are you giving enough UPR? Or are you basing it on, and some days all you're going to be able to do is conditional, because that's all you got in you. But try to remind yourself. How many of you have seen this? Okay, you're going to see it again. I had a kid call me and say, Miss Taylor, you need to watch this. So we're going to watch it. Well, he wasn't a kid. He's a grown-up now, but he was one of my kids. He's the volume.
Every one of us starts out as a wide-eyed recruit. Myself
I'm not
included.
recruiting.
I can go back and tell that kid that you'll see him do things that will help change the world. They'll change you. I'm trying to dig a goal for you. Come join us. Your nation is waiting.
My entire life, either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson, the kids should learn it, I should teach them, they should learn it, case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things. looks like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologize. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. I said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave them a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on his paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. Amen. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insist that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
That's so good, huh? So I didn't tell you that of that class of 60, that was our first, right? None of them had been picked with the true criteria. 100% were accepted to four-year colleges. 100%. You know, the going rate in the Valley is 11%. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. And when they graduated, they were pretty daggone proud, which they should be. Did they all go to those four-year colleges? No. But I had one dad walk up to me. His daughter was one of my kids that, good kid, sits in the front, doesn't talk, doesn't say much at all. And she got in a fight. I'm like, what? She got in a fight? What in the heck are you talking about? So she's suspended. Second semester, she gets in a second fight. I'm like, what in the world? This kid doesn't do anything wrong. She sits, she's attentive. Like, there's no way. Well, she was up for expulsion. And so I wrote a letter, which I swore I'd never do, because I'm very much, I know it sounds like I'm warm and fuzzy sometimes. I do not bend the rules. When something needs to be dealt with, it's dealt with. And fighting was against everything I stood by. Well, I knew this kid came from an abusive home, but I could never prove the abuse. There was never anything I saw. I had just had an idea. And she wasn't abused, but mom was. Traditional Hispanic family, and the daughter doesn't tend to go away. Well, this kid was brilliant. So she's suspended, pending expulsion. I write a letter and I said, look, there's something about this kid. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is. She is a straight A student. She's attentive, but I can't, I'll put my credential on it. I think she's that good. So I go and the guy calls me in. He's the CWA guy. And I'm literally sitting across from him and he says, why should I save this kid? I start talking and he starts snoring. Apparently he's narcoleptic, but I didn't know that.
That's great.
And so as I'm talking to him, he's snoring and I'm like, okay, this is embarrassing. And I'm like, and then he wakes up and he goes, okay, thank you. I'm like, are you good? Like, are you going to help this kid? What? Nothing. She's home, so I can't get a report from her, right? She's suspended. Well, it turns out he just suspended her for the rest. I mean, it was a mandatory expulsion. He didn't expel her. He kept her in. She was suspended the rest of the school year. I think we had like a month left. She ended up graduating #1 in the class, valedictorian. Went to UC Riverside on Folklorico scholarship, and then decided she was too far away from home, moved to UC Merced, which a transfer usually puts you way back. She still graduated in 4 years. And that's one of those kids that you're like, everything against what I believed in essentially as far as the fighting and dealing with it with your fists and all that. And this kid just because one person said, hey, she ended up contacting me about 3 years ago and said, can I have his email address? I want to thank him. And I thought, cool, how cool is that? That she recognizes that he saved her butt. But this is something I looked up and I was like, I knew that Madera and Central were very similar. So in this district, you have 6,400 English learners. You have 120 foster home students. 88, almost 90% on free and reduced lunch. 25% proficient in English. ELA for classes. And only 16 in math. That's what you face every day. And your kids face, they go home, and a lot of them are raising brothers and sisters. You know this, right? A lot of them are raising brothers and sisters. They go home to an empty house. They're not eating well. Some of their only meals are at school, or whatever you have in your classroom. We are given, probably, I would say in California particularly, we are given the hardest hill to climb when it comes to these kids. You're dealing with kids that are either yelled at or ignored. And one of the things that I came from that middle class, I never heard my father apologize. Ever. And he was abusive. But He also never apologized for anything, not even to my mother. And that's why I say I'm surprised they're still married, 50-something years. But they found a way. But, you know, to your kids, why not say I'm sorry once in a while? That would have gone, I mean, he would hit me and then never say he was sorry. Well, as a kid, that stuck. And so I knew that how important an apology was. And I realized with our kids, a lot of them come from very abusive homes also and never hear, I'm sorry. And, you know, for some of us that's hard to do because we feel like we're relinquishing power. But I think it gives you more power because these kids are now on your side. When you are able to say, you know what, I had a crappy day yesterday, I'm really sorry. You know, it wasn't about you guys, it was about me. That's powerful. So just realize, she mentioned that too, and I was like, you know, that's so true. They don't know, they don't get apologies very often. And if they do, and it's from their friends, how sincere is it? So it's important for them to see from a role model, somebody that comes from the educated side of the world, I guess you could say, that it's okay to say I'm sorry. Oh, that's my cartoon. I'm the cartoon person, he's the hokey joke person, but what are you doing wrong? You know, we've got all these things in front of us that we have to deal with. But keep this in mind, the chaos that they live in stops when they walk into your classroom, if they feel safe in your classroom. Do not assume what your kids know. We just talked about that. They don't come pre-programmed to know our rules. So if you don't tell them and teach it, they don't know. Like for me, I'm trying to think of one that my kid, well, here's one. That kid that I told you about that ended up going to UC Merced. We went on one of our first Avid trips, and one of the things I always tried to do is if we had an overnight trip, I wanted to stay in a nice hotel. I wanted them to know what that was like. Because I know a lot of these kids, we stay with family, we don't stay in nice places. I grew up at Hojo's, Howard Johnson's with cockroaches on the floor. So, I mean, you know, most of these kids don't know. And I never even thought about it. So we're handing out key cards. And the key card said 349. One of my kids came up, and it's chaos, and I'm stressed, and he comes up and he goes, Miss Taylor, what floor are we on? And I look at his thing, and I start to laugh, and I start to make a smart comment. I realize they've never seen a key card before. And I went, oh, honey, the 3 is 3rd floor, and then the room number. And they're like, oh, okay. He will forget. He'll never forget that, ever. Well, the next morning, it's free breakfast. But it's not a buffet, which is what I'm used to. And we're sitting. I'm sitting at this table, and that child was sitting over there. And she's getting pissed. I can see her getting pissed. She's got her menu open, and she's getting pissed because everybody's getting waited on except her. And I walk over, and I lean over, and I go, close your menu. What? Close your menu. Boom, closes it, the waiter's right there. And she looked over at me and smiled. She'd never been in a situation like that. You know, I took a basketball players to a funeral, and then we went to eat on the place that used to be over there on 12. Really cute, little, quaint little place. And we're sitting there, and one of the girls with me goes, excuse me, waiter, can I get another rag? And we're all like, oh my God, did she just say that? She meant a napkin. But she had never seen a cloth napkin in a restaurant like that, and so to her that was a rag. And I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. And I didn't say anything, you know. Probably didn't have the Queen Victoria face, but her friends let her have it. We don't have time for that, but just keep in mind that they crave structure because you provide safety for them. This should have been brought up earlier, but it's okay. So you got a kid in class, and they're playing with their phone, they're playing with their laptop, whatever. And you have to ask yourself 3 questions. This will bring you sanity right here. 3 questions. They call them CIQs, classroom integrity questions. Can you continue to teach while that student is behaving that way? Like anybody that's on their computer, it doesn't bother me that you're on the computer, you're not disrupting anybody else, right? But can your students continue to learn while they are doing that? That's your second question. And the third question is, can the other students still learn? So the kid that has that nervous twitch that shakes their knee, that would be me, shakes their knee and vibrates the whole table, right? Is he disrupting me? No. Is he really disrupting himself? No. That's probably how he keeps the rhythm and stays awake or whatever. But is what he's doing or she's doing disturbing his peers? Possibly. If any of the questions answer yes, you need to do something. But if you think about it, the kid who is sitting by themselves shaking their leg, he's not doing it to make anybody mad. He just can't, I mean, that's just how they learn. That's, you know, some of us are fidgeters or whatever. No fidget spinners. But if you ask yourself this, it'll make life a whole lot easier. Because I sat through a lot of classes. I haven't been yet because I'm supposed to be getting my license back Wednesday. It was not a drunk driving accident, I just know right now. I had a severe sleep disorder and drove off a cliff. But the truth of the matter is, if it's not bugging me, it's not bugging his peers or her peers, and he can still focus, that's what's important. So don't address it. In all the classes, a lot of classes that I've gone into, the teachers that have the worst control worry about every little detail. You know, rocking in your chairs, that's dangerous. But like the way you're sitting right now, I know you guys are tired. You've been in teaching all day. So is it worth it for me to say, sit up straight? I want, you know, complete silence. Hey, you're not paying attention. I'm addressing everything. How much teaching am I going to get done? So a lot of this stuff needs to you need to let go of, especially if you're a control freak, and ask yourself these 3 questions. Did everybody get them? There's my diffusers. I told you it was there. Steve. Prompts. Okay, last components. Self-control. Stay calm, confident, quiet. You don't want to be lose your cool. Steve keeps referencing, don't engage in the debate bait, but I want you to see this visual in your head when you realize you're getting mad, is the stairwell. Don't let them engage you and take you up, because you'll lose that battle. And you want them to realize that you're in control. Teach twos, we talked about that. We're going to go over it more in depth. I didn't plan for it this time because I really wanted to focus on rapport. Teach the behaviors you want, and now you know why. And the last thing is develop rapport. Students don't care what you know until they know you care. I think that is so true. A good teacher can teach anything. I mean, I stink at math, but if you give me math, I'll try to figure some way for them to teach each other. I don't have to be smart. And I was a history major, but it was before NCLB, and because I was a basketball coach, that was more of a priority to the principal that brought me over, and he threw me in an English class thinking I would fail. And I never taught history again, and I did not have a degree in English. But I taught English for 20 years. And one of the things, I was petrified. Like that whole stay a chapter ahead. You can't really do that with some subjects. And English was one of them. And I realized if my kids knew I cared about them, we could do this together, we'll get there. And we did. But it wasn't easy and I was petrified. And when I realized it was all about the relationships, it took a lot of pressure off. Gandhi says, a teacher who establishes rapport with the taught becomes one with them and learns more from them than he teaches them. I think that is so true, because one of the things I always said, my dad really wanted me to go into business, and so naturally, to do nothing that he wanted me to do, I didn't. And I realized every day I would say, you know what, even the bad days, something always happens that makes me go, this is why I do this. You know, this is why this matters to me. And it's, you know, I didn't lose a student until 12 years in. It was the first time I lost a student to death. And I was one of the few teachers. And when you sit at those funerals, or you sit at their weddings, or you sit at their graduations, and you realize how much an impact they had on you, that's a pretty awesome. Not too many jobs can say that you have you build relationships every day. at your tables, if you would. Do I have the, yeah. Do we have any poster paper?
Yep.
So we're going to give you guys poster paper and a pen, a marker. I want you to list the many ways you can develop rapport beyond just saying hi. Like, what are some key ways? And keep in mind things like, a lot of these kids don't have parents show up at their athletic events or their plays. And you show up and they're blown away. Are you here? Why are you here? And then you say, well, I'm here to watch you. You're here to watch me? Like, you know what I'm saying, because you've seen it with your kids. So I want you guys to come up with as many as you can. We won't be doing this long, maybe 3 minutes. Come up with as many as you can, except we lost Steve somewhere. If you started on a list, I'll bring these around. I don't know where he went. But it's right here. Where he told me to do it. Excited. Apparently we don't have much. 3 minutes will not start until the game of Oh, you have them in your little thing, huh? Cool, we don't have to wait on you. Papeles.
Yeah.
Papeles. We have it over here. Did you get new stuff?
Yep.
Fancy.
I need some of those. Telling jokes. I tell a lot of jokes.
Hey, you got about, well, you got 3 now.
Students share personal stories.
Stories or about yourself.
We don't just have highlighters and pens.
On their feelings, how about acknowledging?
Smiling.
Letting them know they're there.
Orange is good for us.
Is it?
Going to
Right.
athletic
What's that?
events.
Oh,
It's
is that a,
and if they may be in drama.
That's taboo.
is that for,
Yeah.
and you have orange and black in the same container?
I'll let you use black, but you can't use orange.
Changing on the shoes, that's all right.
Yeah, red and blue works.
Sing to them.
He's all,
Tell them
Someday it's
about
over. I will not do
We share stories, like when we're at the class, so then they just like, I do morning meetings, so I spend time with that too. I spend like 10 minutes sharing things.
Listening to them about things that they're like.
I don't know what this is. Don't ask me about anything technical. Except my phone, I might be able to answer. Restart it. Control, Alt, Delete.
You know what? Honestly, for electronics, like your cable box or computer glitch, turn it off, take out the battery, make sure it's totally unplugged. Count to 20, plug it back in. You have to let all of your systems drain out the energy before you plug it back in.
You know what? You were talking about my doctor today? He didn't even have Wi-Fi. So they wanted me to look at my medications. I can't, and there was no service, so I couldn't even text my pharmacist, who's a friend, or look it up online. Because they didn't have Wi-Fi. And they were getting mad at me. I'm like,
I don't know where the crowd is.
oh. nephrologist. All right, wrap it up. We'll share what you have.
Laughing and playing, you know, so.
Are these the sticky?
So I originally
That's like.
had planned us to do a reverse gallery walk. Have you guys ever done that? A gallery walk? Yeah. I'm pretty sure you guys all.
What's a reverse gallery walk?
So I was gonna have it instead of where everybody walks around and one person stands and talks about it. We were gonna do reverse and have the person that was talking about it go around to the table so we didn't have as many people moving. But that's not gonna work because we're running out of time. So all I want you to do is we'll have one person stand up and share. And here's my thing with this, is you might hear something that you didn't think of. And that might be something that you're really comfortable doing. So why don't you guys start since Steve's already thrown you up there. Go ahead, somebody.
Well, we have up here open door policy, where we have our door open before school, let them come in, share, just talk, help, whatever.
Safe place.
Sit at lunch with them, so finding a spot to sit with, groups that maybe you need to get more acquainted with. Students have small talk and share, so they'll just, even as you're going around with small groups, sometimes they not on topic, but they want to share with you at that moment, that party over last 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, okay, can we get focused? You listen. Playing at recess, morning meetings, share even your own as a teacher, like your own personal story or your own mistakes. That's what we.
Awesome. That group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharing our hobbies, so Cheryl Haro, he sings, so he'll sing to his class.
Yeah, I sung too, but it wasn't pretty.
Telling or sharing, personal aspects of your life that are appropriate about in our families that are more relatable and focus on. Yeah, I like to do one-on-one meetings with my students at the beginning of the year, get to know a little bit more about them personally, what they like, what they do, their goals in life so far. And then listen and respond to those stories. Making sure you're not just being dismissive, like, oh yeah, that's cool, like actually responding to what they're telling you.
Good. One of the things, I don't know where I heard it, but I realized I was really guilty of it, is when I'm at the computer working and the kids come up to talk to you and you're like, and then I realized that I'm not engaged. Somebody called me on it, I'm sure, because it's not something I came to. And I went, oh crap, how rude. So I had to make myself stop and actually turn and face them when they talked to me. And then I had 2 strokes, and so it became a joke. After that, I'm like, hey, if I don't write it down, don't expect me to remember it. So you better tell me to write it down if you need me to get you something or whatever. And so it became, that made me have to at least face them. Didn't mean I always hurt them.
I was dating a girl between my first wife and second wife who just loved to talk. So I'd put the phone down on speaker, and every now and again I would go, wow, how'd that make you feel? Wow, how'd that make you feel?
I knew that was my mom.
I knew that wasn't the girl for me.
Who knew that was over? Okay, this group.
So we said to listen to them and remember what they share. Connect with their interests. It's amazing how sometimes just asking about or just talking about, football or baseball or whatever the thing is. I have a student who's totally into BTS.
What's that?
A Korean pop band.
Oh.
She is she writes her name in Korean. She's Mexican, but she writes her name.
That's awesome.
And this is, so she'll write her name on all of her papers in Korean. I'm going, no, it must be Jenny. Because nobody else writes their name in Korean. But so, if I ask about it or I saw a story about them and she's totally, you know BTS?
I do now.
Yeah, I've never heard of them before.
Right.
Ask and make sure to act interested when, if you ask them a question, don't, again.
That's what you guys are saying.
Yeah. Be positive, and laugh and play with them.
Have you ever noticed that they see you like at Walmart or Costco, they go, you shop here? Yeah. You're like, yeah, I mean, weird, I have life, and I have kids. Okay, you guys.
We're both first grade, so we said like morning chat, talking with them at recess or while you're walking in line from recess to class. Random check-in, a student interest survey, so asking like what kind of books do they like, so then we can get more Pizza Cat or whatever. And then letting them in on your life, so just telling them like, oh, I went to the aquarium this weekend, and showing them a picture, and some of them have probably never been there before, so.
That's so cool because, like, we have animals, and I mean, obviously I'm a storyteller all the time. The kids knew they could get me going, and then just sit back and they wouldn't have to do anything. But I would talk about my dogs because I had a lot of dogs, and they all knew I was an animal person. But I'd never been a rancher or anything like that, and I was at an FFA event for something totally not related to anything I was doing. I was tagging along, and apparently some of my kids saw me on the other side, and they come over and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I came with my friend," and they're like, "Miss Taylor, you don't do this." Like, and I'm like, "Oh, girl, I walk through horse poop now, pig poop, goat poop. Oh, I got this." And they just look at me like I'm an alien because I was never that person. Unfortunately, I am. I mean, well, fortunately, I am now. But this group got a ton. Who's going to speak for you guys?
Do you want all of them?
If you want to read what wasn't repeated, would that make it easier?
Maybe
Just read them.
telling jokes, acknowledging their feelings. Like if you see someone's having a bad day, just asking them about that. Humanizing yourself, so telling stories about yourself. We did that one already. Just smiling.
Yeah.
When they're in, because I know we always have a lot on our plate. Sometimes they just need to say that. Showing you care. Showing support in, like she said, going to their sporting events, or if they're in drama or a choir event, complimenting them, acknowledging, what was that? I don't
Changes in
remember.
their life.
Changes in their life.
Oh, yeah.
Listening about their interests, saying sorry, you already said that one. Being respectful to them, I think that goes a really long ways. Seeing and knowing differences in them, and then having those one-on-one conversations whenever you can get the chance to do that.
I think you can tell from all of you that you get it. I mean, and this isn't probably something foreign to you at all. I think it's just, I think sometimes we get so bogged down with the logistics and the requirements and all the things that, as a department chair, I had a lot of teachers come up to me and go, "Oh my God, I can't do all this. How are you going to do this?" And I thought, whoa, relax. Just work on your relationships. It'll happen. And I don't think a lot of people take their time to do that. And so this is more of a reminder of how and why it's important for you to do that. And I had a kid one time, the nerdy, skinny, the little boy who hasn't grown up yet. He's going to be picked on in high school. That's what stinks. And this poor little guy was just, I think he was in my English class, but he was different. And then one day, he came up to me and said something about his mom was gay. And I think he was waiting to see how I'd react. And I go, okay. I go, how are you? Are you okay with it? Yeah, I'm okay. But he goes, people don't understand. They make fun of me. Well, he ended up joining GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, as a straight child, but who had gay parents. And he just needed someone to be able to tell that to. And if you think about it, he didn't feel safe telling people. But this kid had been bullied and beat up, and he ended up doing quite well. But you may be that teacher. You may be that person that kid can only tell that to you, but that's all he needs, is for one person in this world to know that you understand what he's going through every day. And I know you guys all have stories, and you all have lives that you've changed, and you realize how powerful, one action, one word, sometimes showing up at you probably don't deal with a lot of this, but I had a student that was shot and killed after I took a group of kids to Italy, and we went all over Italy. It was an awesome trip. We get back, this kid was shot and killed, and I got a phone call from one of his classmates saying, "Are you coming over?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you going to come over to the house?" Okay, could that be a worse nightmare for me? Like, I realize I'm fairly outgoing, but I don't like walking into a room of people that all turn and stare at you, much less when they're all grieving the fact that their friend was just killed. And I'm like, okay. And then I got another text, are you coming over? And then another kid, are you coming over? Guess I'm going over there. And you know, you walk in, and everybody's sitting around staring at each other. You know how it is after a death. And the mom and the sister come running up, and all the kids said, we're so glad you're here. And I'm thinking, I'm not doing anything except crying. Like, I was crying, I was a wreck, and here I am, supposed to be there as the strong person. Well, I'm not the strong person. But I realized they just needed to know that, I guess, that I knew about it, and that I cared, and that I was there. Worst experience of my life. Because there's nothing you can say that's going to be right. So you just stand there, and then you cry, and it's pathetic, but it is what it is. So you can get out of here. You have 3 things to do for homework. This one is more in line with our video. Who's your champion? It's online too, you don't have to write it down. Who's your champion? Think back to your childhood. Who was your champion? Was it a parent, a relative, a coach, teacher, pastor, or several? And why were they your champion? And just share it, paragraph, nothing elaborate. That's number 1. That's probably the easiest. In this next, I don't know how long till the next class, but next week?
November.
Next week.
Are you serious, next week?
Yeah.
All right, well, in the next week, 5 instances in your classroom where you utilize the CIQs. Okay? Can I teach? Can the kid learn? Can his peers learn? Okay? And then, do you feel, what was your plan of action after that happened? Do you feel that you handled it calmly, assertively, and quickly? And what, if anything, would you do differently? So keep that in the front of your mind. Tell yourself on your way home what the 3 CIQs are, so that when you're in a classroom and a kid's making you mad, ask yourself these questions. And then the third one, there's an article called Relationships Matter. It's also on the thing, so you don't have to go. And then be someone's champion today. I kind of took it off the Notre Dame, but whatever. I happen to be a Notre Dame fan. And I don't, is that the right email?
It's also on your agenda.
Hopefully, you guys will think about the stuff we talked about. Thanks for sharing. The website, ours?
Yeah. We tried to load everything so we should finish by February.
Yeah.
Evaluate.
Got it. Well, and if Wednesday my nightmare's over, I'll be going to class as well. And then,
Yeah.
okay.
Bye. See you next week.